You're listening to Beyond the Bell, Leading with Purpose, a new conversation space where educators and leaders explore what it truly means to lead with purpose, courage, and heart. Join Dr. Nathan Manley and myself, Jim Cummins, as we share the inspiration behind Lifted and how purpose-driven leadership can transform schools and communities. This is Beyond the Bell, Leading with Purpose.
Today, we're excited to welcome Dr. Josh Chastain, who is currently serving as superintendent of Harrisonville Schools in Harrisonville, Missouri. Dr. Chastain is in his third year in that role and brings a strong background in curriculum, instruction, strategic planning, and professional learning communities. Over the course of his career, he has served as an elementary teacher, principal, and district administrator, including significant leadership work in Nixa Public Schools. He is especially known for his commitment to building strong academic systems, supporting collaborative culture, and helping districts move from vision to implementation. Josh was also recently recognized by MASA as an emerging superintendent. Josh, welcome to the show. Instead of us doing all the talking, we'd love for you to introduce yourself, share a little bit about your journey, and tell listeners what continues to drive your work in education.
Yeah, thank you. Glad to be here. Thinking about my journey really starts with family. That's an education family. My mom taught for 42 years. My grandfather was teacher, principal, superintendent, counselor, Southwest Missouri, and ended up at Central High School and retired in 1975. And just the whole focus has always been about kids and what's best for them. And that kind of drove my elementary education career, starting out in third grade, Springfield Public Schools, and then moved into administration at Nixa Public Schools, and started the first STEAM elementary school in the state of Missouri, John Thomas School of Discovery, and from there went to central office and curriculum instruction and assessment. After we had three girls, after the last one graduated, it really felt like it was a time to that we could stretch ourselves. We probably tried to stretch ourselves earlier, but the right time and the right fit was when Aubrey graduated, and it allowed us to move up to the Kansas City area, which was a big move. I mean, nobody says I really like to move homes. They don't want to do that, but we did, and we took a chance, and Harrisonville is a great place for us. Spent the last 3 years really trying to get to know a community. Even though somebody might say, well, there's 11,000 people there, you might know everybody. You really don't. There's all sorts of different players in a community, and I've taken that time to get to know them and really feel good about being in a place that it just feels right.
Yeah, that stretch part is interesting because as young leaders, we always have a little bit of comfort, but we also, if you're driven, you want to move. And I'm sure part of that stretch was you're impactful where you were, but you have a chance to go design your own system and be that person. And talk a little bit about just that transition from being an assistant to being the.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, the reality of the work in central office, you have an area of focus. When you get to the superintendency, it's all your areas of focus, and good, bad, or indifferent, it's something that you have to be aware of, and you have to know what's going on in order to be the one that can help guide your leadership team, your teachers, your board, to a successful outcome for your district. And I think there's always that idea of, can I do that? And I don't know that I question myself in that way, but I really um, needed to know, if that was a possibility and something that I could tackle and have an impact on. I'm not out for myself. I'm always there to help um, in public schools. That's my passion. That's the key, that those kids need us, and I've learned a lot over the last 3 years.
Yeah, they need leaders. That's without question.
Yeah, and I note the spending your time and the wisdom in getting to know the community, getting to know the district, getting to know the people, even though they might say it's kind of that small town. Um, Seeking to understand before just coming in and like you said, maybe making the system about me and what I want to do and not getting that collaborative approach. And so kudos to you on that as well.
Well, I'd like to tell you, I'd like to tell you that we kind of took our time, but I think sometimes when a board hires a superintendent, there's something that they're needing from them. And I really, the big need from their perspective, from me, was academic improvement. And so even though we went slow to go fast, that academic piece was a priority. And we had to move and we had to do things, sometimes faster than what they could understand. The board was, okay, we've been doing a whole lot of things. When are we going to slow down? And sometimes you see all of the pieces that need to be fixed and or worked on, and you have to prioritize. And our priority was academics.
Good.
Right. And I think it's important for a young leader to going into a new system to understand that getting to know people, asking questions, getting to know the culture will save you missteps along the way because you're really seeking to find what's of value, what are the non-negotiables, what are those type of things that are community specific. You're saying the board needed you to tackle academics. I don't know that there's a community out there where there's going to say, "Oh no, that's a sacred deal. We don't talk about academics."
Yeah.
So you kind of knew that you had to go that direction. Meanwhile, you're spending 2 years. What are the things that I can't touch, whether it be the band program or whatever? And so I think you hit on an interesting point for young leaders. There, you can't sit around for 2 years and do nothing
Oh man.
while you're out seeking information.
Yeah.
And that's not why the board hired you. But you're aware enough to know I got to find who the players are because at some point in time we're going to need to do something big or we're going to need to make a change.
Yes. Yeah. Being able to, and I think the other thing that helped in that aspect is that I was passionate about and knowledgeable about curriculum and instruction and the PLC work. So that um, allowed me to, and I would persuade, convince, get on board, at least the people that I was working with, whether it was our administrators or our staff or sharing that vision in the community. That helps to have that knowledge so that you can make the right conversations go the way it needs to be.
Yeah.
Let's hit on that some more. You spent a lot of your career focused on curriculum, instruction, and collaborative systems. When you think about academic leadership at the district level, what matters most to you right now?
It really, for me, our biggest, there's two pieces. One is our professional learning communities set up so that it is the way we do the work. I don't think you can do the work necessary without that framework. But the other piece is to really move our teachers from teaching a resource to really directing their work on standards, pacing, unit planning, pieces that drive them right back to the what we're supposed to be teaching so that all students are getting that great instruction. That just seems it's just a big priority because I don't know some of the previous work that's been done, and it just drives everything. And I know sometimes it seems like teachers and staff, they just want to move past it. Just tell me, just they want to move past it. But I truly believe if we do this work right, long after I'm gone, they're going to be doing the same thing. And that's what I want to see. I don't, and I told the board, I could come in, we could get our MAP scores up next year. They're going to go up, but it's not meaningful work. We have to lay the foundation, and that foundation is going to take us 3, 5, 7 years to where we start really seeing the needle move for the right reasons.
Good. The building capacity piece too, of just everybody within the system, so it doesn't depend on any single one person and the impact and what you're really, I mean, so much of, we know within Hattie's work, collective teacher efficacy and where it lives. But do we understand what that means? And can we, the PLC part is sometimes the easy piece. Can we get people around the table to have meaningful conversations around the right work so we get to that place of collective teacher efficacy where they believe that we can impact the lives of all children here.
Yeah.
Let's do it and let's do it well.
I always cringe a little bit when people say, I was hired to raise MAP scores. Well, were you hired to raise MAP scores, or were you hired to put in a system that will raise academic rigor and achievement and depth and understanding, and your teachers understand effective teaching? Because there are a lot of ways you can raise MAP scores that aren't sustainable.
Correct. And there's a lot of board education that has to come along with that because they want to see things change every year. And we've been, I did all of that work in Nixa. 5 years in, we were still feeling like we were ready to kind of look at some conformative assessments and other things that is a step in the right direction, but not the whole thing. 3 years into the work that we are in, I've had to back up again because I know it so well. Maybe I don't communicate as well the things that we're doing. And one of the pieces that really enlightened my board was really having a 5-year plan, 5-year academic plan. Of course, we've always had a 5-year budget plan, but the academic plan is important for them to see the progression because they're not educators and they want to know why is it taking that amount of time to really see some big changes. And um, it's a great learning experience for me. I get frustrated at first. I might like say, well, I've been talking about this. You should, but then I realize this is more about educating others on where we're going and how we're going to get there.
You talk a lot about your team and the collaboration. What resistance did you see? How did you overcome any resistance in the whole? Sometimes teachers love working in their classroom in isolation. What's your tips for getting teachers to collaborate? Any leaders, getting your principals to collaborate?
Yeah, the biggest resistance I had, and I hadn't seen this before, and it's not a bad thing, but those leaders that have been in the district for quite some time always just said, well, central office needs to tell us. They will tell us what we're doing. Well, they told us we need to. So there wasn't a level of ownership of the work that they needed to do. and they're great leaders. It really is going, okay, I know what I need to do. And handing those reins over to the principals to take on that role as an instructional leader, which, as much as we would like to think that everybody as a principal should be an instructional leader, they've got a lot of other things going on. And a lot of times that has not been talked about, or they have not done professional learning on their instructional leadership roles. And I think it's now more than ever the key role of a principal, where before it was management.
Mhm.
And I think that in the district, management was the piece. If we didn't hear any phone calls or anybody saying anything was going on, we were doing the right thing. Um, but we could be better. We could do better. And we have such an amazing leadership team that has committed to the process because of them going to professional learning or us learning, collaborating together, that they could take it then and speak the truth
Mhm.
to their staff members.
So you did a great deal of not just at the teacher level, you really poured into your leadership team overall to make sure they can go into the buildings with some confidence and implement these things with systems and everything else, it sounds
Yeah,
like.
we're really trying to. I believe it works best if you can start small,
Hmm.
start with your leadership team, them going to conferences, them learning those pieces, doing the book studies, and so that there's confidence there to then move on to teacher leaders, PLT leaders, guiding coalitions, get them understanding a little bit more, and then we move to. So we're 3 years in, and the first all staff PLC meeting that we had with a presenter was on March 8th.
Yeah.
So, no, February, March, I can't remember but the first time that everybody got to hear from this voice. They've been hearing it from me, they've been hearing it from their principals, they've been hearing it from their teacher leaders, but we try to spread it out appropriately so that we're saying the same message.
Also, a little bit about, one of the things that you run into when you want teachers to collaborate, you got to find time. When you want principals to not be managers, you want them to be instructional leaders. You gotta figure out a way to remove some of the management stuff. What are some things you did in Harrisonville to provide relief from management stuff for your principals and allow time for the collaborative work with your teacher teams?
Well, first of all, I believe, and having been a principal myself, we always fall back on the things we feel most comfortable doing. And that sometimes gets in the way of the work that we need to do. And so the one of the biggest things that we had to do is to really talk about the role of your assistant principal. Elementary assistant principals tend to be kind of like a co-leader in the building. We're kind of all doing the same kind of work. We'll tackle discipline together. We'll do those kind of pieces, and really giving the lead principal the opportunity to say, "This is what I need you to do, so that I can do this." And in the secondary realm, there's the disciplinary piece that really is holding that assistant principal or assistant principals kind of hostage during the day. But but the principal has to trust that other people are going to be able to do some of the work. Delegate, because sometimes they don't want to delegate, and because they want to take care of themselves, they have to do that delegation so that they can be out. A high school is huge. Even small high schools take a lot of time to be out and about in the
Mhm.
classrooms. and they have to find that time, and delegation is the piece that they have to be able to do, and not they don't have to tackle every problem right away.
Right. Yeah, good stuff.
I think one more thing on that piece. I think one of those first lessons, and I think this is good to what you talked about there as well as, when I moved from being principal to central office and thinking I was going to go work with teachers. And sometimes the goal was to overcome some leadership that wasn't extraordinary and really realizing like the principal is the linchpin to everything at a
Mhm.
building. Proximity wins. And so to think that you can give a directive at central office, like professional learning communities or whatever it is, and it's just going to take care of itself, we better pour into that professional learning of that leader is one of those big pieces that I found. I don't know if you had a similar experience, but man, I remember going to his office like, I really thought I was gonna do something. I gotta rethink everything.
Yeah, and you have to trust your principals that they're
Mm.
going to do that. And I feel like everybody does what they do with good intentions.
Hmm.
That's not always the case. However, you have to be able to say, I trust you to carry on the message. And sometimes maybe holes in their knowledge or a little uncertainty causes them to misstep sometimes on the message, and then we gotta triage some of that piece. And a lot of times the fallback is, well, that's what they told me to do,
Mm.
and that can't be that ownership is in the principal work. Man, it's a it's always busy. They're always doing something, and so pouring into them is a key piece.
Yeah, I think everybody here can agree that the principles are the key, and how do we build that capacity in them? Yeah.
So a lot of people talk about collaboration, but obviously not all collaboration is equally meaningful. So in your view, what separates the real collaborative work from just simply meeting together?
We have to have a common agenda and common goals. So when we um, meet, we understand why we're taking that time, and the principal has to start that. I mean, if you've got an instructional coach, it's a great help, but the principal has to be the defining start to that. You'll start to see your good teams that get it right away and they're rolling, and then other teams need a lot more in-person support where the principal is in there, and that's a time from the principal too. But they have to be in there not as the guide or the lead of the meeting, but the support to get them to do the work that needs to be done. And setting what work needs to be done is the key, whether that's the SMART goal or whatever we're looking at. But sometimes they'll go off on all sorts of different tangents, and trying to make sure that it's quality work while we're together in that team um, is important. And for us, I'll tell you, the last 2.5 years, all the work that they're doing is unit planning and pacing. It's everything. And in their mind, they should be going on to worry about RTI and how we're going to help these kids, and or what about our assessments and all. But until you have that first piece, what do students need to know?
Mhm.
You can't do anything else. And I think that gets them to come on, let's do it. Let's
Hmm.
check mark. And I'll tell you another thing I feel is really great is so many of our new educators coming in. That's what they're used to and want. They don't know it another way. They don't know the isolation, let me do my own piece. they've typically, when we, assign student teachers, they're with a teacher that is a veteran who does the right work. And they say, man, this is a team process. This isn't an individual process. So when they come to you, they don't know it any other way. And so we're trying to talk about, why are we not doing this work? They're saying, I'm all in. Let's do this. And it helps to hopefully inspire some of the veterans that really have to change a process that they've been in for 20 plus years.
Yeah, and I think that your point of them wanting to go to RTI and the next level, they're pushing. That's a compliment to you getting them on point and on the important work, because I can tell you that I imagine there are some leaders that are dealing with their PLC teams, just trying to get them to understand you can take care of who's bringing candy for Grandparents' Day in an email, not in your PLC time.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you've got them at least to the work.
Yeah, we are in the work, and we teachers, they're there to help. And so when you say something about RTI, response to intervention, that draws them. They say, I can do that. I can help kids. Unfortunately, we've done it wrong for so long that it's fix the kid because they can't read, or fix the kid because they can't multiply. That's not what it is. It's really the minute details of what students need to know, but that comes after you're teaching them the right things and you know what they should or shouldn't know. It's just it's so bringing them back. You can help a kid. You can do some remediation, but we're not going to talk about RTI until we're ready.
That's good. That's good, Josh. 'Cause, yeah, like I said, everybody wants to jump to that, but you're never going to go broke trying to answer question one. And the ability
Yeah.
to be more prescriptive with what's actually happening. So then you can actually group kids efficiently, effectively. You can have conversations about the instruction, and is it hard because people want to move on? It sure is, but I think as leaders we have to understand that productive struggle is good for kids, it's good for adults, and that's how teams start to bond as well. As the don't run away from the struggle of that work is what I would say too.
Yeah, and I think that you probably have experienced this as well, is there's going to be a time where we move on from everybody needs to know how to do that to just everybody needs to do it. And we learn how in between. And what I mean by that is, at what point does everybody need to know the struggles that we go through to do the unit plan? To then, how are we just working, looking at it and adjusting the unit plan? Because how many times do we need to make sure everybody knows exactly how to break down a standard? It is key that they've gone through that work and they've struggled and they've talked together. But do we want them on that struggle bus the entire time?
Right.
Or are we ready to kind of go, here's your standards broken down?
Yep.
The productive work is continuing to talk about that and what you're doing. So
That's good. This is a little bit, wasn't one of the original questions, but professional learning communities and the impact on kids is, I mean, just tons and tons of research. And I think that's why we do it, and it's great. But you guys have seen teams that collaborate well, and they're a true professional learning community. And I wonder if you see this, Josh, and you might add to it. One of the reasons I am so passionate about the work as well, and you kind of hit on this, is we know what workplace happiness and what leads to workplace happiness. We know about belonging, purpose, and growth. And when you're on a team and you're collectively doing those things, those are much more fulfilled people. Those are much more, they're happier. They know there's a purpose. They're doing something together. As you said, isolation, and there's so much a part of our profession is I'm just going to shut the door and these are my kids. But it especially now leads to so much burnout and so much, I don't know, all those other negatives. And so just when when PLCs are functioning well, people are happier.
Yeah.
It's hard work to get there, but I don't know if you touch on
Yeah,
that too, if you noticed
yeah,
that.
I think your biggest hurdle is vulnerability. Teachers go in to the profession to help kids, and they are doing their best.
Mm.
Most everybody is doing their best.
Uh-huh.
And when we start to question what that best is, or ask them to share about their work, it gets so deeply personal. And when you can jump that hurdle, the reliance on your team and that we're working together to do this flourishes. But man, is it hard, especially those teachers have been teaching a long time, to say, maybe you weren't doing the right thing the whole time. But what they believe is that the work that they were doing is right. And you can't just say, "No, you did that wrong."
Mhm.
You have to see, they have to see for themselves. And it isn't just a conversation. It is seeing the work that needs to be done. And I truly commend our veteran teachers who really commit to that process, because they have made a huge change in their work at a time where they might be able to say, "I'm not doing anything
I'm
different."
not doing it. Yeah. So we let's
Either.
yeah. I want to hit on five, and then we'll jump down there.
Okay.
For leaders out there to listen that want to strengthen their academic core in their school or district, where is the first place you would tell them to start that will give them some traction for that work? I'm a new leader. I'm coming in. My board told me the same thing. I need to raise the academics. I listened to Dr. Chastain's podcast, and he said I should start here.
Yeah. Uh, I think you have to attend a PLC conference. I think that is the key to igniting a spark in you. But I think more importantly, if your background is not um, academics, you have to have somebody in your district that's leading that charge that you trust more than anything, because they are going to have to be able to tell you the good, bad, and the ugly. And they're going to need your support. And if you're not the one taking that on, you have to know what that other person is doing. And so you have to, whether it's, maybe you just have a small district and you have a curriculum specialist, or you have a director of academics or whatever, you have to trust them, because their work has to follow a vision. And if you're not setting that vision or knowing that vision, you're not going to be able to make the changes that you need. And that they just have, sometimes as a superintendent, I see it. I rely on my business director a lot. I didn't come in as a finance person. I've learned a lot of finance over the 3 years. I rely on her a lot, but you need to rely on your academic person just as much, because that's what's being seen. And with legislation, A through F, all of those pieces, even your APR, you've got to know it so that you're making strides in moving forward. And you've got to know that person really well.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that comment. And for if there's any new superintendents that came up through the finance side, I can relate exactly to what you're saying, because I was that guy. I was more of the business side, and I needed Dr. Manley, and I needed to trust him, but I also needed to know what he was doing, because I had to communicate to the board. I had to own it eventually. But I trusted him, like you say, completely, and turned that over. So if you're a superintendent that's more of the operations finance side, that's your what brought you up through the system, like you said, you gotta have somebody you trust to put those in.
Well, I add to that. Yes, I appreciate the trust. Um, and I'm sure you're the same way. It wasn't, you didn't pass the buck when people came and talked to you and say, oh, that's Nathan's job. Eh, there were times where we'd have initiatives and I could clearly see you'd either go to the conference yourself, and not everybody does that, unfortunately. So you had some background, so you knew, but you were a champion for the process too. There are times where I would see you'd have a book on your desk of what we were going through as a staff as well. So that was a key teamwork piece. And there's a lot of times where you can say, "Oh, that's somebody else's job," and then there ends up being this tension. I feel like, and so, but with this, there was trust, but there was unity.
We were
I
on the
think that
same
was, yeah,
page.
I think that
Yeah.
was key. So
Well, let's go to my heart a little
let's do
bit
it.
here. So, as a servant, as a leader, it's a demanding job. 24/7, you are the superintendent. You can be on vacation in the Caribbean. You're still the superintendent if something goes south. So, how do you maintain your balance, your well-being, so that you're not a burnout leader, you're an energetic, you're an inspired, and you're modeling well-being for your staff?
Yeah, I take a lot of notes. So, and the reason I do that, and I wish I could settle on what I've got notes in a on my computer and notes in a digital notebook and notes on sticky notes. But the reason I do that is to keep whatever it is in front of me, but not being the immediate. I try to make sure that things move at a different pace in central office and decisions, however we might have wished they would be made quickly, they need to be made at a slower pace. And sometimes you feel like you have to do whatever it is. And so I really try to step back and make sure that we're intentional about everything. That intentionality allows me to go home and just focus on family, or my favorite thing to do in the whole world is mowing. I got to make sure the lines are just right. People in my neighborhood would say that guy's crazy. He mows all the time, but it's my release to just not focus on anything and clear my head. And you got to find something like that. I wish it was golf, but I can't find the time to do any of that. But then I think the other thing is your family becomes even more important. Not that they weren't important before, but as your kids get older or you spend more time with your spouse, you realize how important they are to you. And you can't tell them everything. You're not going to tell them everything. Um, but they need to know, and you need to know that they're there and they understand.
I say it probably almost every podcast, but your family, your loved ones, the people close to you will be there after the job is over.
Yeah.
The job will not outlast your family. And so you got to keep that balance. I love that. And you mentioned in the beginning, you waited until your daughters were graduated, and we were sharing a similar story about interviewing at times when our kids were still in school, and they'd be like, "Yeah, we're rooting for you, Daddy, but we're happy you didn't get it."
Yeah.
And so just a reminder to folks out there that the job can be all encompassing, but you've got to find for Dr. Chastain, it's mowing. And by the way, if you ever really need to get in a really, really good way, you can come down and mow in the
You got a
Ozo.
big space.
I got space. But yeah, just keeping in mind that you got to be well as a leader.
Yeah, I had a little just a brief little health scare this past summer, which really was an opportunity for me to go, okay, I got take care of myself sometimes and not take all of that on. And it just reiterated the fact that if you're not if you're not in that great space, it will not show well for your staff, your board, your community, and they need you as much as you need them.
Good stuff.
It's good. Ready to close it out?
You bet. So, thanks for coming on with us. This is the first time we've done one it's semi-live from the Emmett Massa conference, but worked out well and just have enjoyed getting to know you over the years and continuing to follow your good work and um, just kudos to you and your wife who's doing the work too. Continued blessings on you all. To our listeners, we hope today's conversation encourages you to reflect on how strong academic leadership can shape not only student outcomes, but the culture and coherence of an entire district. If your district is interested in sustained leadership coaching, systems work, or professional development, Nathan and I would be happy to visit with you about how Lifted can partner in that work. And until next time, be well and keep leading with purpose beyond the bell.